Remember the show Glee? Well, this Glee actor got charged with the possession of child pornography, and he was also accused of SAing his ex-girlfriend. This is Mark Salling. And he was always a bad kid, so his parents sent him to military boarding school, and this completely changed Mark. Allegedly, he was abused, and an ex-guard that worked there was caught with a ton of child porn. And Mark never admitted to getting abused, but there were a lot of signs. He started this private school being very energetic and funny, and when he came out of that school, he started to isolate himself and he didn't want any friends. But his behavior eventually got better, and his parents allowed him to pursue an acting career. He was enrolled back to a public high school and graduates. He then moves to California and joins the Los Angeles Music Academy College. And Mark would get roles here and there in movies, and he always wanted to be famous. But it wasn't working out for him. However, after years of not giving up, he finally lands his role in Glee, and he becomes world famous overnight and goes on to dating one of his co-stars, Nara Rivera, for 3 years. But their relationship was very toxic, so they ended it. Meanwhile, Mark keeps turning down roles in other movies because he thinks if he waits long enough, he's gonna get a bigger role that would make him even more famous. However, his screen time on Glee gets cut, and quickly, Mike gets more and more irrelevant, and it affects his mental health massively. And he only makes things worse because in 2013, his ex-girlfriend Roxanne would go to the police and say that he assaulted her. One day, Roxanne goes to Mark's house and catches him with another girl. Mark gets furious because at this point, she's blocking. So he grabs her by her arm, throws her down, and she hits her head. She immediately goes to the cops and reports him. He goes to court, denies everything, but he gets sued for $2.7 million. He gets a role in another movie, and he thinks, finally, I'm making a comeback. But because of his actions, he loses his role. And then, another ex-girlfriend of Mark comes forward and reports that Mark is a danger to children. Earlier that day, Mark had asked his girlfriend if she wanted to watch child porn. And obviously, she's like, what the f***? And he tries to play out like it's a joke, but she still reports him to the police. And in December 29th, 2015, Mark was arrested for possessing over 50,000 explicit images of children. Not only that, he was sending it to others. These kids were as young as 2 years old, and he even had a file of instructions on how to assault a 3 to 5-year-old child. He was arrested, but he was bailed out of jail the same day. And a year later, he pleaded not guilty. But because of the charges, the judge said he would have to stay 100 feet away from children. He couldn't be around arcades, schools, parks, and he was legally not allowed to be alone with a minor. He had to hand in his passport and wear an ankle monitor so he could be monitored by the police. Not long after, Mark tried to take his own life. He slit his wrist, but right after, he regretted it and called for help. He was rushed to the hospital, survived, and was later sent to a rehab center for mental health treatment. Then the court offered him a plea deal. If he pleaded guilty to having 2 counts of child porn, he would get 4 to 7 years of jail instead of 20 years. He would also have to spend 20 years under supervision after getting out, and pay $50,000 to all of his victims. Mark took the deal and agreed to everything. But just 1 month later, before he could officially get sentenced, he took his own life. And because he died before sentencing, the victims never received the $50,000 they were promised. That's a real shame.